Okay, so quite a few developments since I last touched this bike. I've actually managed to straighten the frame out with the help of a friend and a big pry bar and a hammer. I seem to have got it lined up to where it originally was. So I'm just in the process of repainting where the paint's flaked off there. And now I'm going to crack on with getting the old engine out. I'm not really following the book now because I've going to go a bit out of sequence, I think, but the things I need to do first is there's an electrical connector in there which I'm going to disconnect, and there's a sensor on the front of the engine here which, if you pull back the rubber shroud, there's a nut underneath, which I'm going to just undo with a spanner, and then it clips on with all these clips around till it joins the rest of the bike. So I'm just going to unclip those wires till I get back there, and then I'm going to take off this bracket and take off this, I think it's the clutch cable here, disconnect that as well. Okay, so I'm almost ready to drop the engine now. I'm just doing a slow video so I can see where all the pipes and wires route for when I go to put it back together, just in case I can't remember where any of them go. I think the last cable that's attached to the body that I need to disconnect is this cable here, which is cable tied here. It looks like the best way to disconnect it is by removing these two plugs here and here. Should be fairly straightforward. This clutch cable is quite easy to get out. You just bend up the little tab on the edge of the lever, push the lever forward as if you were operating the clutch, pull the cable away from the sheath, and then it just clips out. And this sensor in the end, I didn't actually remove the sensor itself, I just took the screw out the end and pulled the cable off. Right, first thing I'm going to try and do is remove the bolt on the shock by using a 14mm socket. Normally I think you'd have to jack the bike up to do this to get the weight off the back wheel, but I want to see if it'll just come out. There shouldn't be a lot of weight on it at the moment. Okay, next I'm going to remove this gear selector lever by loosening off this nut here and trying to pull it off, and then I'm going to try and take off this cover by taking out the 3 hex bolts. Right, now I've got the drive sprocket cover off. The manual says to remove the chain you have to remove this sprocket, and to do that you have to take apart all sort of the back of the bike. I'm going to see if I can do it without doing that, so I'm going to see if I can just remove this rubber guide and maybe slide the back wheel as close as it'll go to give a bit of slack on this side, and see if I can unhook the chain. I also need to disconnect a couple more cables. I'm not sure if that's going to be successful, but I'll give it a go. Okay, so it's getting tricky now. I've ended up removing the back wheel altogether so I can get enough slack in the chain, and it's off the drive sprocket, but because of the angle it won't come past the threaded nut there. So I'm now going to remove this bolt, and there's a bolt in there from this guard, so I can hook the chain out of the way and get more of an angle and pull it out. Right, that seems to have worked. So now I'm going to think about dropping the engine out. Right, it's turning into a bit of a nightmare now. There's one bolt down there at the bottom hidden under all the grease and dirt, which you can't really get to with a socket, which you need to do really because it's behind the side stand, which seems to be attached to this panel, which seems to be attached to this panel, which is probably attached to this. So I think what I'm going to have to do is take all of this off just so I get to this one bolt. Right, I've now got most of that off, and I've undone all the bolts on this plate. Problem is now this plate is held on by this bar which goes all the way through and holds the swing arm on. Now there's a nut on the other side which I can slacken off and then remove this bar and hopefully remove this plate, but I'm supporting the swing arm on an axle stand, and I'm a bit concerned that if I pull this out then the bike will kind of fold in half and crash into the ground, so I need to do some thinking. Okay, so this job would be 100% easier if you're doing it with someone else and you've got the right stands, but I'm seeing how far I can get on my own. So I've laid the bike down on its left hand side. Actually broke one of the mirrors in the process of doing this, which is a bit annoying. Should have taken it off, but it does give me an excuse to get some custom mirrors on afterwards. I've used a 22mm socket and a breaker bar to loosen this nut off and tap it through a bit to loosen the plate on the other side, which I'm hoping to rotate round and get to that nut, which is on the far end of this section here. It looks like the nut for it's here actually, so I might loosen that off now. I've also, because there's no weight on the back wheel while it's on its side, managed to use two 14mm sockets with one arm on each side. I've taken this bolt out which went in that orientation. While it's here I'm going to go for it. I'm going to try loosening off the main engine bolts on this side. So we've got a nut down there, one there that looks like it might be blocked by these brake lines, one here, and the main one which I think I'll leave till the end just to stop it falling out. Which, by removing the little hex screw here, this whole assembly loosens and you can sort of pull it out the way just enough, I think, to get a clear angle on that bolt there. Right, I'm really in unconventional territory now. With the help of a few blocks of wood and a jack, I've taken most of the weight off the engine. I thought I was going to have to flip the bike from one side to the other, but actually I've taken all the bolts out from this side and it's only the main one left, so I'm going to try and pull that out and just see if I can basically pull the engine out this way without doing too much damage. This could go badly wrong, but let's see what happens. Just gave it a quick test pull and realised I'd forgotten, of course, there is one of these on the other side, so just remove that, see what happens now. And there we have it. Apart from a couple of cables I've missed there, which I'll have to work out how to unhook, it came out pretty easily. The stickiest part, weirdly, was the shock, which should have been the easiest bit, but with a bit of tap of on a plank of wood just to bash it out, it seems to have come out okay. It's worrying how corroded it is. I mean, this isn't an old bike. It's not done that many miles, and you can see when you look in there's quite a lot of corrosion. And before you all comment, yeah, I've used what do you call it, ACF 50, but I do find it really hard to get inside here and clean these bits in the middle of the bike. I've never been able to do that very well. Anyway, so I'm going to disconnect a few cables. I'm not sure if I'll try and put the new engine in the same way that one came out. I probably need to get some help for that, and I probably won't film putting it all back together, because if you follow this video in reverse, in theory that should be how you do it, and that's how I'm going to try and do it. Anyway, I hope you found this series useful. As I say, this isn't necessarily the right way to do it, it's the way I'm doing it with a limited experience and tools that I have. But thanks for watching. See you next time.